Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Plant-Powered People of Arizona's special event tonight. We're really honored to have with us George and Peggy Nungesser. Peggy, come on up because we want to see your lovely face here. And George will be telling this story. Oh, sorry. Close your eyes on that one. Our potluck is a beneficiary of the Nungessers. They started this potluck, a raw potluck, the world's best raw potluck in 2020, April of 2020, and it has not missed 1 month in that 22 plus years. So this is our 271st consecutive raw potluck, and so we're so grateful. And their efforts here in the valley, they were here in the valley doing this potluck for about 14 years, and George will give you more of the details here, but we have spawned other potlucks, and the Plant-Powered People is kind of like of Arizona, is sort of an umbrella organization. This is called the world's best raw potluck. Mary Russo has top raw men's raw food potluck in Scottsdale, and we have several other potlucks that are plant-based whole food. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to George, and thank you. Oh, one more announcement. As I mentioned earlier, we are now going international. Our dear fellows, actually, Philip and Susan Madeley, moved recently. Philip is from England, and they started the Plant-Powered People of Penrith, which is in the north of England, and they just held their very first plant-based whole food potluck. So you guys have created an international event here. So
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Tom and MaryAnn, for inviting us. It is so nice to be here tonight. So good to see the friends that were in the potlucks when were at our home, and the new people as well. You all are great, and you all make great raw food. It was awesome tonight. Like you said, this is the 271st consecutive raw food potluck. And did you know there's a vitamin that can help us make friends? Many of us take vitamins. What is the vitamin that helps us make friends? Exactly right. Vitamin B1. B1, be a friend, and you will make friends. Awesome. Many years ago, sometimes we can have health challenges ourselves. Sometimes our children, sometimes other family members or friends. Well, some time ago, many years ago, Peggy was visiting a friend, and they were eating crackers and hummus. And little Charles, who was 1 year old at the time, came up to Mom, and Mom kind of flipped off the hummus to share a little cracker with Charles. And Charles turned his head. He didn't want any. But a little part of the hummus touched his lip. No big deal, right? Within seconds, his lips started turning red. And then his lips started to swell. And Peggy said, "Ruth, can you take me to the emergency room?" And his body started getting bigger. As they drove down through the night, anytime the car was illuminated from an overhead light on the street or buildings nearby, they saw his body getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They were in the emergency room within 20 minutes. He had anaphylactic shock. His body was swollen up almost twice its normal size for a 1-year-old. They did what they needed to do, and they saved his life. Well, we had him food tested many times. And here Charles was basically allergic to all food except for two things: chocolate and onions. And he'd go around teasing people, I can have all the chocolate covered onions I want. How many would you want? Unfortunately, at almost every meal, his lips would tingle, his throat would itch, and it would start to swell, and he'd break out in hives. So he'd just stop eating. Sometimes he'd just go lay on the couch because he was allergic to food. We carried an EpiPen for his health everywhere we went. Well, many years later, someone told Peggy, have you ever eaten a barley powder? It's kind of healthy for you. She says, no. So we got some barley powder. And it's a powder you just put in some water, you just stir it up and you drink it down. And we did that for a while. Now, Charles was 19 years old when this happened. And he said, Mom, can I try this barley powder? Sure. So he tried it. And guess what? He had an allergic reaction. But he said, you know what I'll do? I'm going to cut it back to just a quarter of a teaspoon, put it in the water, and drink it the next day. And he didn't have a reaction. So the next day he did it again, a quarter of a teaspoon. Did it for about 4 days in a row with no reaction. And then he says, well, I'm going to increase it to a half a teaspoon. No reaction. Did that for about 4 days. No reactions. And he kept increasing and increasing and increasing. And after several weeks, he was up to 3 tablespoons at a time. And he had no reaction. What amazing discovery. He could eat something without a reaction. And then one day he says, Mom, I can eat this banana and my lips don't tingle. Something was stabilized in his body for the first time after having that barley powder. And his food allergies disappeared 100%. Eating food without fear for him and for his parents. Well, our older son, George, decided to go on a challenge to go and just eat raw food. And he talked to Charles and his friend Stephen and our daughter Coraline and says, how would you like to go on a 1-year challenge to only eat raw food? And we'll hold each other accountable. Said, yes, let's do it. We'll transition from the standard American diet, which is known as the SAD diet, to a raw diet. Well, after about 2 weeks, they says, you know, we're tired of just eating salads. So they started using their creative skills and coming up with new recipes of things to eat raw. Well, something amazing happened. After they had been eating raw food, nutritious food, for 1 month, Charles said, my asthma is gone. I no longer need my inhaler. And he carried that everywhere he went. And Charles's asthma simply went away. On April of 2000, Charles decided to start a teenage raw food potluck. So a lot of the parents would bring the teenagers to our home. And when the parents would come inside, they would see all this food. They'd say, boy, that sure looks good. And one of them came to me and says, can we stay for the potluck? I don't know. You have to ask Charles. So they asked Charles. He says, sure, be glad to have you. And that was the very first potluck, April 2000. More grown-ups started coming and teenagers started coming because it was good food. And then Charles and Stephen decided to create more and more of these different raw foods to eat. And then they started a raw food preparation class where people would come, pay them just a few dollars for the food that they're going to be eating later, and they would watch Charles and Stephen create these wonderful recipes. Well, one night, Sir Arnold Takamoto and his wife Colleen and a doctor friend and his wife came. Just so happened that night they were having Asian food. And when Sir Arnold Takamoto ate that food, he says, "This food is some of the best I have ever eaten. Do you have a raw food recipe book?" No. Well, where do you keep your recipes? Well, we scribble them out on the paper here, but most of them are up here. Sir Arnold Takamoto then said, "If you can put your recipes in a recipe book, I will feature you in my doctor's conference this October in Scottsdale, Arizona." So they were so busy coming up with the recipes. And I'd like to thank Mary Russo for your dedication in helping those boys come up with a raw food recipe book. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Suzanne Elliott for being a great proof reader. Yes. And Janet Cook came up with a great idea for top hat tips for the recipe book, and you'll see those when you look inside the book. Well, the book was published just in time for the doctor's conference. In fact, we picked it up Friday night and delivered it Saturday morning. Just in time. Well, Charles and Stephen then did a food show for the doctors at this doctor's conference in Scottsdale. And they were so impressed. So impressed. In fact, one of the attendees of this doctor's conference knew someone in TV, and they gave him a call. And then in about 2 weeks, Charles and Stephen were on the TV show Good Morning Arizona doing one of their recipes. They did the fettuccine not Alfredo on TV. Now the host on the program says, "You know, that food looks pretty good." She says, "I normally don't do this. I normally don't sample food that's on the show, but I'm going to sample this one." She sampled it and says, "On TV, this tastes great." Well, this is the raw food recipe book. It's called How We All Went Raw by the Top Raw Men. Now, the men call themselves the top raw men because they are in top physical condition because they eat raw food and they are men. But our daughter says, "I'm the chick flavor of the top raw men." It has great recipes inside. It has really good pictures of about 20 of the recipes. Really good recipes. It has 5 great endorsers on the back. Now I'd like to share with you some of the wording of what some of the endorsers said. The first one I'd like to read is Reverend George Malcolmus. He said, "The physical body we each possess is a living organism comprised of living cells and designed by God to be nourished with living raw food. All cooked food is dead food, and thus cooked foods are not in the proper form to properly nourish our living cells." After adopting a basically raw living food diet, along with drinking copious amounts of vegetable juice, I saw my cancer and all my other problems go away. We juice twice a week. Anybody here juice? Oh, nice hands. I like that. Well, if you look on the table, you'll see a yellow piece of paper. And let me explain these words. It's a little song that we're going to sing eventually. But we talk about juicing carrots in this song. Juicing a carrot. Now, most people, what they do, they peel that carrot. And after peeling the carrot, you push it down through a juicer of some type. And you're making carrot juice. Why? It has vitamins, minerals, and live enzymes. Good for us. So what do? We peel that carrot. We push it through the juicer, making carrot juice for you. And if someone's making it for you, I'm sure it's served with a heart full of love. So look at those words there to the song, and let me sing it for you briefly, and then we can all sing it together, okay? Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you with vitamins, minerals, and live enzymes. Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you, and it's served with a heart full of love. Are you ready to sing? Okay, let's sing. Here we go. Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you with vitamins, minerals, and live enzymes. Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you, and it's served with a heart full of love. One more time. Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you with vitamins, minerals, and live enzymes. Peel that carrot, push it through, making carrot juice for you, and it's served with a heart full of love. Good job. Good job. Good job. Yes, peel that carrot. Okay, I'd like to read another of the endorsers of the book. And it is Dr. Mary Ruth Swope. And she had this to say: 40 years as a professor of foods and nutrition was enough to convince me of two truths. One, life can only come of life. So live raw foods makes live people just as surely as dead processed foods make dead people. Number two, anything raw is more nutritious than the same food cooked. So don't just buy this book, but let it be your daily guide for making delicious, nutritious meals. Good advice. Good advice. And I'll read just one more, and I believe you know this gentleman, Fernando Lapallo. I understand you gave him his 114th birthday party. Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is what Fernando Lapallo says. I was born in Brazil and grew up in New York City. My father, a medical doctor, told me 105 years ago when I was 5, son, if you want to live a long, healthy life, then avoid man's food and eat God's food the way he made it, raw. I am now 110 years young and walk for 1 hour every morning from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. I have lived long enough to have had 3 careers. I feel great and am thankful to God for showing me how to eat to live and not live to eat. What a statement. What a statement. Yes, yes. All the recipes in that book are really good. And someone asked me one time, well, what if you had to eat one more than one time? And I said, well, there's a recipe in there. They're all good, but I could eat one every day for a month. That's the Philly cheesesteak. There's also a recipe in this book. It's called Tom Turkey. Thanksgiving is coming when? Next month. Next month. And a couple from the East Coast wrote me a letter after Thanksgiving of last year. Bob and Ruth. And this is what they wrote in their little note. Thanksgiving last year, they tripled the Tom Turkey recipe in the book. It weighed 10 pounds. Big. And it served 40 people. It was at their vegan dinner that they had in their home. Everyone was excited and loved it and ate all of it. No leftovers. We had vegan dinners in our home for many years until we moved to the Rolling Green Retirement Village. Well, we have the dinners in a church facility now. And we have been on a vegan diet for 21 years. And are 85 years old and are in very good health. Amazing. Folks, we had fun having potlucks in our home. Great people came and they brought great food. It was fun sitting around and visiting with people. We also had some speakers. We had some doctors and dentists and chiropractors, even had testimonies of people recovering their health by eating raw. And one time, I call it kind of a miracle guest of the Galloping Gourmet TV show, Graham Kerr and his wife, Trina, came and they spoke. When they spoke, you could hear a pin drop. They were just outstanding folks. And like was mentioned, we have had potlucks now for 14 years. That was 168 consecutive potlucks. We then moved to Placerville, California to be the full-time caregivers of Peggy's mother, Marie. She could no longer live alone. She needed us to take care of her. Now the potlucks have continued thanks to you. And this is the 271st potluck. You guys are awesome, and I'd like to give you applause. Very, very good. Very, very good. And it is great hearing about people's health improving by eating healthy and changing to a positive lifestyle. I'd like to share a little funny and profound story about our son Charles when he was 3 years old. This happened in 1981. I was employed as a pilot to fly for EG&G Special Projects in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we moved from Texas to Las Vegas. During my first week of employment, I took little Charles, 3-year-old Charles, down to work to show him where Daddy went to work. Well, we walked around the building and you could see airplanes outside. And then we walked into the chief pilot's office. And here was Ted, sitting in his desk chair with his feet up on his desk, smoking a cigarette. We walk in, Charles walks in, and he sees Ted. And Ted immediately puts his feet on the ground. And then Charles says, "You moke, you die." My boss of 1 week asked me, "What did he say?" I said, "You moke, you die." He immediately put out his cigarette. And he says, I've tried to quit for a long time. 10 years later, I was then working for Southwest Airlines and I had a flight into Las Vegas with a layover in Las Vegas. So on my layover, I went down to EG&G Special Projects to visit my old boss. So I go down there and meet Ted. He says, let's go out to lunch. So we did. One of the very first things he said was, please tell your son Charles that I have quit smoking. Out of the mouth of babes. Folks, you never know how others are going to be influenced by what you say, even if they're only 3 years old. Charles encouraged my boss to be healthy. To be healthy. Okay, I have a question. I got a question for the group. Raise your hand if you know the answer, but don't say it out loud. Just raise your hand. Okay, the question is, just raise your hand. What did Charles tell my boss of 1 week? Yes. Yeah. You're right. And I would like to give you a raw food recipe book for having the right answer. Good job. I'm going to tell you another true story. Folks, it's a true story. We all have a variety of pressures in life. Pressures and peer pressures. During my last semester of college, I received a letter in the mail. It was a notice that I was going to be drafted for the military for the Vietnam War. I then waited for my actual induction notification. While waiting, I went to the Air Force and they were able to sign me up for a delayed enlistment program. One that canceled my draft notice, and plus that allowed me to finish my last semester in college. Having my college degree allowed me to go to officers training school, and that allowed me to go to Air Force pilot training. Air Force pilot training was a very intense 53-week program. We had both academics and flight training. The first airplane we flew was the T-41, which was just a military version of the Cessna 172, single-engine, high-wing plane. That class was about 6 weeks long. And if you pass that, then you advance to what they call the T-37, a twin-engine jet plane. It could do full aerobatics, loops, rolls, spins, and all kinds of things. It was fun to fly. And that class was about 5 months long. And if you pass that one, then you advance to the T-38, which is a supersonic airplane. It would fly faster than the speed of sound. After about 1 month of training, we had our first class social. And when I walked into the building where we were having the social, I noticed everyone was drinking a beer. Well, I had grown up in a Christian home where no alcohol was to be found. And during my high school years, my best friend became a drinker of alcohol. He actually stole it from his parents, who were heavy drinkers, and his dad even owned a bar. I thought, drinking alcohol, this is what I thought. Drinking alcohol was a waste of time, waste of money. I didn't have much money, and it wouldn't be good for my health. How can I serve the Lord if I'm impaired drinking beer? How could I function properly in life and make wise decisions while I'm consuming alcohol? I wanted to live a life that provided clarity of mind for life's difficulties and also for life's opportunities. So that meant for me to be alcohol free. So when I walked up at the bar they had there, I got a 7-Up. And I'm visiting with all the other pilots in my class when a tall, prominent flight instructor walked up to our group. He looked around and then he looked down at me. And he said, "What are you drinking, Lieutenant?" I replied, "A 7-Up, sir." The captain said, "Throw out that 7-Up and get a beer. You'll never make it in the Air Force without drinking alcohol." I said, "Thank you, sir." I kept my 7-Up and did not get a beer. My pilot training class started with 82 students. It was a very intense program. Only 41 students got their pilot wings. Exactly 50% did not make it through the course. I graduated high enough in my class that I was able to select my first choice on the list of new assignments. And I picked the C-141A model, which is a 4-engine jet transport. Well, I went to co-pilot school and became a co-pilot. Then I went to my squadron, and after I got so many hours, I advanced to aircraft commander. And then I was selected to become an instructor on the 141 airplane. And then I became a flight instructor and a check airman. I gave check rides. I advanced quite a bit. I flew to places all around the world. I flew all around the United States and Vietnam, Philippines, Japan, Okinawa, Thailand, Germany, Spain, Azores, Greece, New Zealand, Australia, Pacific Islands, and more. Even had a couple of missions where I carried the President of the United States cars. Where you see, when he goes somewhere, he doesn't get a rental car. He needs his own car that is bulletproof and bomb-proof. I had another mission where the back of the cargo airplane was configured like a hospital. We even had a surgery room that could perform any surgery they needed. And we flew from Hawaii down to Australia, out on the west coast of Australia, a place called Exmouth Bay. And that was kind of an unusual airport because what are some of the animals in Australia? Kangaroos and emus? Well, they were wild all around the airbase. So before we could land, we had to come down and buzz the field to scare away all the kangaroos and emus so we'd quickly come back around and land. Well, we were there because there were some Air Force personnel, U.S. Air Force personnel, that were there as assistants to the Royal Australian Air Force. And one of the American Air Force guys became very sick. Very sick. And so we were created like a hospital to fly down and pick him up. Well, they brought him on the plane, and the flight surgeon talked to me. He said, he is very, very sick. He's had liver failure because he has drank alcohol. Whoa. Well, we had to fly from the west coast, Exmouth Bay on the west coast of Australia, over to the east coast, Sydney, Australia, and change out flight crews. And the next crew is going to fly him up to Hawaii for his medical care. Well, after we took off and we were flying at cruise altitude, heading towards Sydney, something in my mind came forth. And I remembered my flight training and the peer pressure that I had to drink beer. And I wondered if he possibly had that same type of peer pressure to drink alcohol too. I remembered that time because it was severe pressure because I was just a student pilot. He was a big instructor. But I did not go and bow down to my Air Force captain flight instructor's heavy peer beer pressure. I still advanced in the Air Force and civilian flying without drinking. And down through the years, I observed, and I'm sure some of you have observed, unfortunately, other people, they drink too much. And they have health problems, personal life problems, work problems, and family problems. God provides strength for our health, personal life, work, and family. One does not have to drink alcohol to have a successful life. Okay, I have a question. Please raise your hand if you know the answer. Do not say it out loud. Just raise your hand. When I went to that pilot training social, what did I drink? Yes. 7-Up. That's right. Very good. That was really close. That was really close. I'd like to give you a raw food recipe book. Very good. This next one is personal, more so than the other. We all can have a variety of health challenges. Some are minor and some can be serious. Some can happen rather quickly, while others just kind of slowly sneak up on us. On Friday, June 17th of this year, Peg and I got home around midnight from spending 2 weeks in Hawaii, aloha, celebrating our 53rd wedding anniversary. We got up the next day, and I was sitting at my desk about 9:30, and all of a sudden I felt something in my chest. What is this? Peggy said, do you want to go to the ER? I said, well, yeah, maybe so. So I got up, and we slowly walked to the truck. And I quickly figured, what's the best way to get medical help? Drive up to the ER. The hospital was 2.0 miles away. We knew exactly what it was because we had gone to the hospital several times to visit people that were there sick. Or should we call 911, talk to them, and then they talk to an ambulance, and the ambulance has to drive out? I thought, we can be up in the ER a lot faster than an ambulance can come to the house. Well, even though it was a short distance, Peggy even called him on the phone and said, I think my husband is having some heart problems. We're going to be there momentarily. We pulled in front of the emergency room. They came out with a wheelchair, lifted me out of the truck, put me in the wheelchair, and took me inside. Going inside, they says, on a pain level scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain? I told them, but I couldn't believe the way I said it. I said, it's a 9. I cannot have a 10 because that is what a woman feels when she gives birth. Well, they put me into the ER, they picked me up, and they put me on the bed. I was kind of sloped up a little bit. And then I realized I could not move my right leg. I could move my left leg, the toes, just a little bit. I could not move my left arm. I could barely move my right hand. And here I am laying on the bed looking up at the ceiling, and all of a sudden the ceiling started swirling really bad. I closed my eyes so I would not get motion sickness. It was so bad. And throw up while possibly having a heart attack. And I thought, is this what it's like when you die? You lose all strength, you can't move, and the world just spins out of you? I then prayed. I could be dead in seconds. Jesus, you died on the cross for my sins. I accepted you as my Savior, and you took all my sins away. I could be dead. I could be seeing you in seconds. And I had no fear of dying whatsoever. And then I became aware of my surroundings again. And they asked me, what's your pain level again? And I told them again, it's a 9 because well, they stabilized my body. The pain went down. They said, your heart is pretty good. But we're going to send you down to Sutter Hospital in Sacramento, and they're going to do a heart procedure tomorrow. We're going to take you down by ambulance. So here I am now. I'm riding in an ambulance down to Sacramento, laying on the bed in the ambulance. And I remembered the numerous times that I had pulled over to the side of the road to let an ambulance go by. Now others were pulling to the side of the road for my life. We got down to Sutter Hospital. They checked me out and says, you're going to have a heart procedure tomorrow morning. Folks, it was a long, long night. The next morning was Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. They gave me a local anesthetic. I could not feel the surgery, but I could hear the surgical team's conversation. They did an angiogram up my right wrist. They says, okay, we're opening up your right wrist. I tried to feel it. I couldn't feel it. Okay, we're going up past your elbow. I tried to feel it. I could not feel it on my elbow. And they found one artery that was about 80% blocked, resulting in an angioplasty. I heard them say they saw no damage to the heart. The heart is perfectly fine. After surgery, I was taken to the recovery room and I was wide awake. And a nurse came in and gave me some paperwork. And it was basically instructions of when I went home and how to live and how to eat. And they talked about eating healthy to avoid heart problems. I thought, I've eaten healthy for decades. Why did I have this problem? And then I remembered my mother had heart problems, a lot of heart problems. In fact, she was in a medical facility with heart problems. And my father was in the facility with her to feed her lunch. And during that lunch, she slowly raised her hand to block his arm from bringing food to her mouth. She collapsed with a heart attack. My dad went out to get medical personnel to come in. They came in, they tried everything they could. She died. My father saw his wife die right before his very eyes. Then I remembered my mother's father. I only saw him a few times when I was a little kid. We'd go by his house. He was always laying in his bed because he had heart problems. He was always on oxygen, and he died from his heart problems. I have a long family history of fatal heart attacks. What an inheritance. The surgical doctor said my heart is perfectly fine. My cardiologist, who I saw just this last Monday, said my heart is perfectly fine. And he says, well, let me schedule you another appointment. I thought, is it going to be next week, next month, or whatever? He says, your heart is so good, I'm going to schedule it for 1 year from now. It'll just be an annual checkup. He said my heart attack could have been triggered by the genetics and would have been much worse except for my active life and eating healthy. I had to fight against genetics. And so glad that I have been eating healthy. I got a follow-up call a week after my initial ER visit. And the nurse asked, George, how do you feel now? And I said, I feel outstanding, because I did. She said, really? I normally don't hear that. Folks, there are many benefits for eating healthy. Whether you have a good ancestry or a poor ancestry. Many benefits for eating healthy, folks. And I thank every friend, family members, and Peggy for praying for me when I went through that ordeal. Because God answers prayers. Thank you, Jesus. Folks, it is also important to help other people be healthy. We have 3 sons and a daughter. Our son Richard, who is here. Yes. Oh, yes, thank you. I have one more question. Thank you. If you know the answer, raise your hand. Don't say the answer out loud, but if you know it, raise your hand. What pain level did I tell the, yes, right here. No, left side, right here, yeah. What? A 9, that's right. Very good. Give you a book. Second one back. You had a lot of hands. Boy, they went up there so fast. Very good. Very good. It is important and healthy to help other people. We have 3 sons and a daughter, and our second son is Richard, right over here. Richard and his wife, Brooke, moved to Poland as missionaries. They went there to teach English to university students using the Bible as a textbook. For you see, Poznan, Poland is a big university town. They teach a lot of doctors, dentists, and MBAs, and they're all taught in American English, not British English. American English. And they use American curriculum. They come from around the world. Some don't know very much American English. So they were there, and they could help them get their degrees. Well, they taught most of their classes in Poznan, Poland, where the universities were, but they traveled once a week to Gniezno to teach English, American English there too. Well, they had to travel to Gniezno by train. And when they went to the train station, they saw a lot of homeless people. And their hearts went out to them. Several nights later, Richard went back to that train station with a thermos with 3 cups of hot tea, 3 granola bars, and 3 gospel tracts in the Polish language. When he walked into the train station, he was overwhelmed when he saw more than 80 homeless men, women, and teenagers huddled together, trying to stay warm. Richard told me that he sat down and prayed. Lord, could you multiply this like you did the 5 loaves and 2 fish 2,000 years ago? He then approached a man that was eating out of the trash can and poured him some hot tea. Gave him a granola bar and a gospel tract. 2 other men came up and he passed it out. He was all gone. He didn't have any more. Everything was passed out. But he went home and told his wife what happened. And he and Brooke then started talking to other people, how they could help others. In the next 9 months, they passed out 10,500 cups of hot tea, 6,100 meals, and a homeless ministry was born. That first winter that they were there was a very difficult winter, and more than 300 homeless people froze to death. They have now expanded from 1 train station to over 37 cities, villages, and towns in Poland. They feed over 3,000 people every month, close to 10,000 pounds of food. They help hundreds of sick children every month. They have distributed more than 10,000 pairs of prescription glasses. And these prescription glasses have been in Poland, Ukraine, Moldova, and Morocco. It was very interesting because when they had been there 10 years, the Polish government recognized them. Of the top 100 charities, they were number 8 after 10 years. They have now expanded from that 1 train station to Moldova, Ukraine, Zimbabwe, Ivory Coast, Pakistan, and a city on the East Coast. They've gone from 3 cups of tea to 4 continents. Yes, yes. When the Ukraine war started, they've been able to help thousands of people. The war started on the 24th. On the 25th, they had a truck going right to Ukraine to help out with necessities. They have been missionaries now in Poland for 21 years. Remember, he prayed for 5 loaves and 2 fish. They're on 4 continents. It's healthy to help others. My health insurance provides the Pritikin plan, which is a cardiac rehab plan for my health. It is a nutritional and exercise program. Class is 3 days a week. Everyone exercises if they can for 40 minutes on a trampoline, not a trampoline, but a treadmill, bicycles, and things of this nature. And then you go in for a class on what to eat and how to live. They exercise for 40 minutes. I exercise for 40 minutes with them. Then I get off the machine and I walk around for a minute and a half and get on another one. Do exercise for another 40 minutes. Get off, walk around for about a minute and a half and get on another one. They exercise for 40 minutes at a time. My heart is so good. The doctors have told me so. I exercise for 2 hours. Yeah. Yes. For the best health, they stress eating healthy, exercise, no smoking, and have a positive attitude in life. Folks, negative attitudes can hurt our health a lot. Think about this for a moment. Jesus Christ has forgiven us. It is important that we forgive others. When we do not forgive, it will affect us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Just think about marriages, work, and friendships, how they would all improve with forgiving attitudes. After being married for 50 years, I've been asked many times, how did you stay married so long? I said, it's easy. I just say, yes, dear. Yes, dear. The real answer is you forgive. You forgive. And the sooner, the better. We need to live life with the fewest negative burdens as possible, folks. Richard over here gave me a little saying one time that was from an unknown author. And it says, forgiveness does not make the other person right. It makes you free. That is so important. Forgiveness does not make the other person right. It makes you free. Okay. Do you know the definition of a good spouse? Yes. The definition of a good spouse, someone who will stay with you through all the difficult times you would not have if you had stayed single. That's right. Charles Swindoll made some comments about attitude. Folks, it's important to have good attitudes. He says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than success, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. You are in charge of your attitudes. Our attitudes are so important. And I'd like to say, thank you for your positive attitudes and all your potlucks. They are good attitudes. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have several gifts that we would like to give you tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for answering those questions correctly. You did a good job. But we would like to give one for family of a raw food recipe book. It is outstanding. I would like to also share Richard's Bread of Life brochure. Read the editor's note. That's all you have to do. Read the editor's note. Also, I have a little sign. And it's the forgiveness does not make the other person right, it makes you free. I keep one on my desk. And when you take it, you just fold the bottom, it'll fit on your desk. So please come up and help yourself. And we got the books in the back.
Well, first, George, we want to thank you for coming. And we want to give you a gift, too.
Wow.
Just coming here. We think of Fernando. If anybody watches this, be sure to watch the 2 videos we did on Fernando's 114th birthday. They're both on our Facebook and YouTube channels. They're entitled Words of Wisdom from Fernando and a special gift for Fernando on his 114th birthday.
Awesome.
And Fernando said something, Fernando, for those people who don't know, was black. And, but he said something is so prolific that we need, I mean, it was so, profound, not prolific, but profound, that we all need to remember that when God created man, there's only one race, it's the human race. We seem to divide on, different things. So if we can just remember that simple thing, that we're all God's children. There may be different flavors, and but that I think is something that really impressed me about George. And what I'm giving you is a video called Al-Haum, which stands, it's an Arabic word for the dream. And it's about a black troop that came from the U.S. to go to Palestine and perform a play where the Palestinian actor portrayed Martin Luther King. But it's a very powerful video, and this is our thanks to you, George.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. And we'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. It was good seeing all of you and eating your good food too. Thank you for being here. Thank you on the 271st.